Welcome to the Forever Classic Podcast, the show seeking enlightenment through video games, films, and other geek culture. I'm Alex McCumbers, and today it's just me, but I do have a cool guest that I've been meaning to talk to for a while. We got to hang out at PAX West for a little bit. They've got a very cool retro-inspired game that I'm looking forward to, based on the things that I like. So I have Hunter Bond of Berserk Studio, who's in marketing. And Hunter, please introduce yourself.
Hi, Internet. It's me, Hunter, from Berserk. I'm the marketing dude from Berserk Studio. So, yeah, like you said, we got to chat about this stuff a little bit at PAX West, a year ago now, right?
Yeah, it's been a year. Wow.
Ooh, wow. Time is not, it's not great right now.
No.
But, yeah, it's like, I think we had a side. Did we ever do an actual podcast, or did we just have a long?
We did an interview, and I'm pretty certain it is on our feed. If any of our listeners look up the PAX West 2019 episode, it should be in there in the middle. I think
I remember talking
that, or I put it as a separate upload. It might be.
I know that
regardless,
PAX is just it's a long show, so it starts to blend. Especially towards the fourth day. Yeah, you're like.
Yeah, so for anybody that's unaware, this is a side-scrolling retro thing, because, you know me. Of course, that's what I'm going to find and talk about.
Sure.
And so this is really inspired by, Castlevania 2, The Legend of Zelda 2, side-scrolling action, lots and lots of gore. You play as, a Crusader Knight. And so you're walking around whacking monsters with a mace, and it just feels really good, like what I played at your guys' booth, even then, and that was about a year ago now. And so
the demos evolved somewhat since then.
Yeah.
It has some small, the demo is really meant to be a real quick vertical slice. I think it does a really good job of letting you get the feel of the game. And it's so funny though, because the game, which I'm not revealing a bunch of secret stuff yet, but what I can say is the game has so many things that it's absolutely crazy, because the demo would lead you to believe it's an hour or two, a retro game. It's a lot longer than that. And it has a lot more stuff behind, we're building one of the things that we have talked about. And I think it was in the version you played. It just got a little more developed since towards PAX East is the idea of this thing called the Fate system, which is where you have choices you have to make, which in the very beginning of the demo, you're presented with somebody who, you have to decide whether you save this person or you slay them outright. They ask you to slay them, right? They're in agony. And if you don't, then it triggers a fight, which is the first 2 minutes of the demo, right? It's the first thing you see. That articulates in the demo now as depending on which one of those options you choose, a different spell will be available to you when you finally make it to a town. Because it has a similar magic system to Zelda in that you get the spells one at a time, right? You don't level into them, you purchase them. But that system is a really integral part of the game that runs through the whole thing, and they're actually different storylines. It's not a single playthrough. Depending on the choices that you make at those points in time and which quests you choose to do that are side quests,
right.
There are branching paths, so there are multiple endings for the game.
And that's always what I like to see in these smaller retro inspired, or even just the smaller kind of straightforward experiences. I recently played through this random Metroidvania, and I can find the name for you here in a second, but it basically had an end. There was all sorts of random items you can get, and I just wish that there was a way to either play as a different character or do a new game plus at the very least. And so anytime that there's replay value kind of at the core design of, say, Shovel Knight, for example, has plenty of replay value. I always love to see that, because I think it just increases the value exponentially and keeps people playing, gives speedrunners different options, lots of different ways to play. And you guys already seem to have, a touch of that, because there's some things that you showed me on the demo where you have cheat codes and different characters, and that's the kind of stuff I'm super excited for.
Part of it is Berserk's whole philosophy with design, and so the way that the company works is kind of cool. So the company was originally founded by three friends, Etienne, Mark, and Simon, or Latch, right?
Right.
And I'd say Latch, Simon Lachance, or Latch. That's where Latch is his last name is Lachance, so when you just take the first part, it's Lash.
Yeah.
But he streamed a lot of the development of the games we worked on, so he's probably the most public-facing member. But the three of them all started it together and are still all the founding members of the studio. So we've grown and we have new members and stuff.
Yeah, but it's not like they left.
No, not at all. Yeah, I mean, like, Etienne, Infernax is his baby. Like, this game is a game that, the development of it has been kind of funny because, like, we started on it forever ago. Like, it was kickstarted.
It was like 7 or 8 years ago, I think, when I was researching it.
It was, yeah. It was kickstarted, and I haven't researched this. I feel like it's true, though, is that we may be, if not the only, one of the very few games to have been successfully kickstarted and then find a way to manually refund everybody.
Yes, we've talked about this story, and I think I covered it in one of the articles I did on Infernax.
Okay, yeah, gotcha. Yeah, where we didn't want to make it at the budget that it ended up getting kickstarted because we realized it wouldn't be good enough. And so everyone who kickstarted it, though, we still have we kept like 1 penny so that we still have a mailing list so that when it's done, they're still all getting the game for free.
Yeah, you guys actually went through the effort to refund every single Kickstarter backer. And I'm like, whenever you told me this, I'm like, really? And it wasn't just like a marketing thing. It was just being good by the players. It's crazy.
There's like a handful of people who didn't want their money back too, right?
Oh, I'm sure,
but
yeah.
like we tried to get our money like back to everybody. And like the biggest thing was because we knew it was going to take a long time. We knew it was going to take more money. And so we wanted it to be like, look, the timeline on this is going to be way longer. Mm-hmm. And so, Infernax in its current state was kind of resurrected I want to say about 2 years ago, because like I've been with Berserk a little over 2 years now.
Right.
I think time again. But I love retro games. It's like my baby, and Infernax had been on the back burner, and so I got to play it in the state that it was in. And Shane, the other coder, and I were just we met in person because yearly we used to have in December, which was the last time I really traveled other than PAX, was we have our yearly company dinner,
mm-hmm.
and so we all go to Quebec and meet up and stuff. And so cool. Shane and I, when we first met a couple years ago, we're talking about man, it'd be really cool if we could convince Etienne to let us work on Infernax because development on Zombital, our mobile game, had kind of wound down, and that was Shane's baby. Because Zombital existed to fund Just Shapes and Beats. Like, we self-funded the development of that by making a mobile game. And so all the money from the mobile game helped fund the development of Just Shapes and Beats instead of having to, kickstart it or, be published or something.
And Just Shapes and Beats was fairly successful from what I've gathered.
Definitely. Yeah, it's still doing pretty well, too. And I like to think a lot of that is, the choice that everyone made. And this was, I wish I could say it was something that I did, but it's more of just very in line with my beliefs, too, which is they wanted very much from the beginning with Just Shapes and Beats to never have to charge for the DLC content updates. It's pretty rare to find a game like ours where we're 2 years post-launch now, and we've released the number, it's at least 20, 25 new tracks. We have a bunch of mixtapes that we've released, and we don't call them DLC because they're not, right? They're free.
Mm-hmm.
We've done a bunch of content updates, including we did one with Shovel Knight, where we actually commissioned remixes from artists who'd done chiptunes for Just Shapes and Beats, or were friends like Rainbow Dragon Eyes, who did stuff with Sabotage, who's a friend studio of ours from Quebec.
That's a great remix. I don't know if I ever beat that level, because there's a certain point in Just Shapes and Beats that just gets way too complicated for me as a player. And for anybody who hasn't played that, you basically play a shape, and you're dodging shapes to the music, so these larger, colorful shapes. The story mode on that is incredible, by the way. I highly recommend people check that out.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about that game, right, is that the demo of the game presents it as an arcade game, which it is. That's, it's a great party game. But very few people realize, based on it, that there's a story mode that, is only a couple hours long or whatever, but it's an entirely separate thing with a lot more heart than you would expect out of a game with shapes.
Yeah, there's a lot of feelings in there, and it's a couple hours if you're good. I think it took me 8 or something.
Right, yeah. I'm the community guy too, right? So I'm used to everybody tweeting at us when they're like, it's 2 hours. I was like, yeah, it's an indie game, man. It's a replay game. That's like getting mad that you can beat a shmup in an hour. Yeah, you can.
But can you loop it? Can you do it without dying? That's where the real complexity comes in.
It will never cease to amaze me, the dedication for Just Shapes and Beats players. But yeah, so when we relaunch Infernax, it's been cool. It's been in slow development for 2 more years, basically. And we're at the phase now where it's a matter of choosing the timelines and stuff, because we're development-wise, we got to a point where we're running out of bugs, so that's cool. But we weren't ready to release it yet, so we decided we had a list of nice-to-have things, where if we found that we had more time, we could start developing, adding those in, more branching paths, a deeper, side quest system, like more NPCs, etc. And so like we're actually in that phase now where we're like, the game is mostly complete beyond maybe the final polish pass, and so we're adding in features.
How much more can you stuff in there between now and
release?
Well,
that's the thing is that with this year, the way that it's gone too, I think our plans to release were hopefully, I was telling everybody I'd like to see it out by PAX West this year,
right?
And then everything lit on fire.
And that would be around this time. I think mid-September is when it was scheduled.
And I mean, honestly, I think we like I said, we were at a point where the version of the game that we were talking about when I said that last year, we could have shipped that by now.
Oh,
That's
yeah, sure.
That would have, but we realized that there's like the nice thing about being a studio with a game that did pretty well and that doesn't have a publisher breathing down our necks is that like we can afford to take the time to keep working on it because we don't, that was the whole point of refunding Kickstarter, right? Is that we don't have a time limit breathing down our necks. We're not rushing to the finish line on this game just because we're trying to pay the bills, which is great. Like, it's awesome to work for a company that is dedicated enough to the idea of making it as awesome as possible, which is cool because, like, you see a lot of games now that kind of like ship first and patch later.
Yes, especially in the AAA space, and I guarantee that's kind of what we're going to see with Avengers.
Oh, yeah, I bet. I mean, and I don't blame him. Right now would be, luckily Berserk was already a remote company before everyone else had to, but, it doesn't, the psychic load of this year is just tough on developers in general. Like, getting up every day and doing your job like everything has been totally fine and normal is tough. And so it's going to, I'd be shocked. Any project that hasn't slowed down would be crazy to see. Like, I see that Apex keeps doing seasons and stuff, and it's really impressive because of just how many moving parts there must be. But, yeah, so we're like, we're still chipping away at it. I've been watching. I keep getting updates on what they're working on and the new features, and it's rad because, like, I kind of learn drip feed-wise when they're like, by the way, we implemented this, look at it. It's like, whoa, wow, okay.
Nice.
So it's exciting to see stuff that makes me, like the guy who hypes the game all the time, get excited all over because, like, at this point, they've gone to where they're doing some stuff that's going to be, like, cool in a way that I don't think there's any other game like playing in the space of like the NES inspired mostly 8-bit graphic like retro ARPG that has ever done anything this deep. Like, it's pretty cool. I was like, wow, you guys are really, really going deep with this stuff. I'm really excited, and I will you'll get the email from me when I get to tell people exactly about it. But like just yesterday I got to see some stuff, and part of it too is like we have a lot of like like you said, the gore and stuff is lo-fi like 8-bit in-game sprite gore, and they've been doing some stuff with that with some new things that are just like so over the top hilarious, like as far as like the amount of it where it's just like explosions everywhere of gore.
I just played Blasphemous on Switch, and once I finished it, put it down and did my review on it, I'm like, man, now I'm thinking about Infernax, and that's why I was like, hey Hunter, what are you doing?
Right. I tried playing that, and you know what? I think Infernax, like, because I wanted it to be a different game than it was Blasphemous. Like,
it's much better now. By the way, they've done a lot of like patch expansions, and some of the backgrounds are even prettier now. So if you haven't played in a while, now's a great time.
Yeah, I might have to go back because obviously I am probably just like you in that if it's a Metroidvania, I will have probably tried to play it. Like, I don't know how deep into it I will get. Right, the one that's like my white whale I need to go play right now is I've heard nothing bad about Panzer Paladin.
Yes, I played the first couple levels, and Joe's working on a review for us, and it's another one of those like, yep, this is my jam. You got me.
Yeah, because I read about because Flint Hook is a great game. I know the guys who made that, so like when I saw that it was it was under my radar. Then it came out, and I read all the press about it that they were also inspired by Zelda 2, and I was like, awesome, like cool,
right?
That's great.
I love the retro space, and there's so many cool things that you can do, and that's why Infernax excites me so much, because you guys are taking that framework, but then doing all this like rad stuff that most people wouldn't think when they think of NES inspired.
Well, you can't. We're making a game you wouldn't have been able to make, right? Like,
that's and some devs are like,
Nintendo.
we made this in a way that can be put on the NES. Like the people at Retrotainment that did Haunted 85 and 86, and they're getting ready to do Full Quiet. Like, that's going to be on an NES cart. So like the design philosophies are slightly different. But I love that style and aesthetic, and I still to this day think that there's so much innovation out there that is possible. And so that's why I'm just constantly chasing the retro inspired scene, and why it never ceases to impress me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same way in my own personal preferences. Like, I just bought a Raspberry Pi
Sick.
to upgrade my emulation setup, and I own an EverDrive for a Game Boy Advance, and I have like a backlit IPS screen Game Boy
I
Advance.
love
Like
the GBA. It's one of my
yeah.
favorite systems.
Well, have you seen any of the one I'm talking about, which is the original wide Game Boy Advance? But then there's a kit from a company called Funny Playing, and it's an IPS screen, which has 4 times the pixel resolution, so there's no grid. It's like perfectly smooth.
I saw this on Twitter and was like, man, I have like 3 or 4 of the fat GBAs laying around here that I specifically bought to mod, and I'm just waiting for the time and the money.
The kit's not too bad. It's pretty neat. I bought one because I was like, Game Boy Advance is my favorite Game Boy, it turns out.
Yeah.
Because it can also play every generation up to itself, right? And my hands are getting too big, and I'm like too big of a dude for the SP now,
Right.
which had a decent screen. So I just went whole ham and bought like the Cadillac modded one, because the same thing, which is GBA had a really good run. It was like one of the last great runs of 2D pixel art for a long time.
Absolutely love the sprite work and things like Fire Emblem. What is it? The Super Robot Wars on GBA is incredible animation wise. You've got Final Fantasy Tactics. Ooh, Aria of Sorrow. I love that. That's my jam.
Yeah. Like, it was such a high watermark. That's why I have an EverDrive. That was the whole point of it.
I've got not an EverDrive. I've got some other type of flash drive. It takes mini SD, which is that weird in between of like regular SD and micro SD that you can't buy anywhere. So every time I see them at a flea market, I'm like, I'll buy these. Do I need it? Who knows?
The EverDrive is a really cool piece of tech. It feels great. I mean, I love the retro scene in general. Like, that's why working with them on Infernax was like such a huge deal to me personally, is because when I heard that we had it, I was like, oh my gosh, like, what do you mean we're not working
Pull that
on
out
this?
of
Are
the
you
grave.
kidding?
Let's go.
And it's good. I think, honestly, the time that they spent not working on it was good for the game. Like, I think that the game is better now than it, like, if they had just finished it back in the day, it would have been okay. Like, I've played it. It's feature complete. You can beat the game. If they had done it the original design with none of the time and like the exact original thing, it would have been fine. Because their original idea for it was going to just be a Flash game, and then they expanded on it. So it would have been really closer to just a pure NES cartridge experience. A couple hours, that's it. No replay value probably. And this one is just so much more now. And I'm really excited to see where it goes, because I think that, like, at the end of all of this, I hope my hope for the game, really more than anything, is that it's the kind of game that becomes like beloved over time, right? Obviously, we would love for it to sell well, but at the end of the day, it like sticking around and being something people appreciate and recommend, like something mentioned in the same breath as other really great 2D like side-scrolling experiences in the indie space right now. Like, I mean, obviously, anyone who is like, we want to be a Celeste, right, would be crazy.
Right.
But like,
or Shovel Knight,
it would be great
whatever you want to compare yourself to.
That would be super cool, like it would be great to be, if we could be Zelda 2 to Shovel Knight's Mega Man, right? Or like DuckTales, or whichever one is the most important for you to compare Shovel Knight to. Like, that'd be amazing, because like it's such a different design philosophy trying to make a faster Castlevania that is less clunky, has better air movement, because essentially like the design ethos behind it too is like, which parts of Zelda 2 and Castlevania 2 were actually good, because of course there were a lot of parts that really didn't age great. They were, ahead of their time. They had really crazy, like when you go back and play Zelda 2, if there was a way to turn off the parts that are frustrating, there's some really cool game design stuff.
And there's no way that like modern Nintendo would do something like take one of their best-selling adventure games and make like this off-the-wall weird sequel to it these days, right? Like, it was such a weird piece of time. And then with Castlevania, I mean, you have the deliberate designs, you have the very like established jump arc, and that's kind of why bits and pieces of it, like, I know what it works for what it is in Bloodstained Curse of the Moon and the sequel, but like I kind of wish there was air control, because man, some of those jumps are rough.
I've always hated it. Yeah. Like, why? So I admittedly do not like Castlevania as much as I like Zelda 2. I appreciate them for the games they are and all of that. But yeah, when I play them, they feel, because I grew up playing a lot of stuff like, Mega Man, which is all about air control. It's an extremely technical game. I still have a CRT in my house specifically because I
did before I moved.
That much of a retro
I had to get rid of it. Yeah. But I grew up, like, one of my first games was the original Castlevania. And so it was one that me and my mom would sit down and like try to see how far we could get, and we could never beat it.
It's so hard, yeah. I mean, and a lot of that's just punishing, and we're trying to avoid that with Infernax too, though, right? Is like we have a mode where when you die, you have to go back to the last save point that you saved at, or if you don't want that mode, there's a casual mode that like if you die, you go back to the beginning of the screen you're on, which is closer to like a Celeste,
which is something that Joe is actively like against in Panzer Paladin. So it's always cool to like have those options.
He's against respawning at the beginning of the screen or respawning at the save point.
So he's like, man, I just wish because you get through a level and you like miss a jump or something and fall down an insta-kill pit as your last life. It's like, man, I just want to come back at that screen and try again.
I think we're at the point in games now, too, where, like, that kind of stuff that, we don't need to worry about designing to last longer than a weekend rental, which was a huge concern with Nintendo. Like, I mean, Echo the Dolphin is as hard as it is because the creator was like, I wanted to design it so that you couldn't possibly beat it in a weekend rental. And the end result is nobody knows that Echo the Dolphin is a game about aliens.
Yeah, it's
because
so
no one got far enough. Yeah, it's really, really hard, and it doesn't need to be now. But, like, I do like the idea. There are people out there who that's what they want, so let's give it to them. But, like, I think that we're, like, I wouldn't play our game on hardcore. I don't have time. I'm a man in his 30s. Yeah, like, I love retro games, except, like, I love save states because I don't have time to deal with the fact that Mega Man is just actually kind of broken after Wily's Castle. I
would never sit down and play in a fair manner Ghosts and Goblins, ever. But I will definitely load it up on an emulator and load up various pieces via save states because there's some great design there. But who gets to see it?
Well, what's a great game? I just solo beat them, and I'm going to try and get my girlfriend to play them with me. And this is like the same thing, which is I was just playing through Shadows of Mystara, which is my favorite Capcom beat 'em up.
I love that one, the D&D one, yeah?
Dungeons & Dragons.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it holds up. It's a great game. I was curious. I counted how many credits it took me to beat it solo, and it was like 30 or 40, which is less than I would. Yeah, but, at 25 cents back in the day, that would have been quite a bit of money. And so what a fun experience to play those now where you don't have to worry about that, right? Because they even brought out the Beat 'em Up collection. So there's a collection that has like Tower of Doom and Shadows of Mystara.
I really want that on modern consoles. I think it's stuck to the PS3 and 360.
Oh, no, but they brought one out for, I think, Steam.
Oh, is it on Steam? Son of a bitch.
I believe it finally came out on Steam. Yeah, my friend, because he knows how, but the arcade that we grew up near, which was like a Nickel City arcade, one of the Nickel games was Shadows of Mystara.
Yeah, we had one in our bowling alley.
Me and did you ever get to, we beat it, I've beat it multiple times, because me and my 3 friends would all, have a ton of nickels and be like, we're doing it. Like, this is what we're doing today.
No, I didn't beat it until, we had it on emulator, and me and my roommate who lives with me here, Eli, sat down and played it with our buddy Clinton. And it was just like a rip-roaring weekend. We had so much fun with it.
That game is so fun to play. And also, of course, it's got, PvP in that, items are just kind of a free-for-all. So you're like...
there's Chronicles of Mystara. God, I am probably getting that. Is that both games? Probably.
Yeah, it is. And then there's also... What's the other one? The one where you play King Arthur. Last weekend I went on a tear and beat a bunch. So I beat both the Mystara games. I think it's Knights of the Round, maybe?
So in the Beat 'em Up bundle, which is a separate purchase from the Mystara collection, you've got... It's probably King of Dragons or Knights of the Round. One or the other. Yeah.
Knights of the Round. That was the one.
No, I think this Beat 'em Up bundle is on Switch, but the Mystara collection
that's right. That is. Yeah.
It should be.
Sweet Lord. Yeah, it should. It's like... I also, it would be cool if they had net play.
Yeah.
Man. Whew.
Speaking of beat 'em ups, how good are beat 'em ups right now? There's so many great examples.
Can I promote my friend's game real quick? Because it rules. So my friend Sean put out his beat 'em up, sort of, asterisk, Treachery in Beatdown City. Have you heard of it?
Say that again?
Treachery in Beatdown City.
Okay.
So I can explain it. So it looks like a beat 'em up.
Yeah.
Right? Looks like a Double Dragon era NES beat 'em up. It's very heavily inspired by River City Ransom, except it's actually a tactics game.
Okay.
So when you're playing, you unlock abilities, and so there's like a real-time movement like it would be in a beat 'em up. So you go into like a screen, right, and then you have to fight opponents. But when you get in range, there's a status button. You like hit it, and it opens up a context menu, and you have action points and create combos, and then those like hit, and there's like different styles where you have to do like defensive, like people will, it'll be like this person is attacking, and you can counter it or block it, which uses different amounts of HP and action points. It's fucking great.
That is so cool.
It's so good. It came out. He's been working on it. He kickstarted it a while ago and like had to move a bunch. So it's like a triumph of the will that he
it dropped in March according to Steam.
Yep. And so it's been doing pretty good. I know that he's looking better because like when it came out, the timing was rough, right? Like having it come out in March is not great. But they've been putting out content updates. The writing is really, really funny. It's like really relevant right now because he's like a biracial guy who grew up in New York, and so a lot of the culture of like that stuff and like a lot of current political things are written into it in a funny way. Looks like you get to beat up cops,
which for some people is a great thing right now.
It's definitely in that way. It's shaded in the like it's. You got to read it. You know, it's definitely the context of it makes a lot of sense because out of context that sounds
more malicious than it actually is.
But right, yeah. But I love Treachery and Beatdown City. Speaking of beat 'em ups that are surprisingly deep,
that's cool.
I'm sure if you ever want to talk to him, he'd be happy to come on the podcast.
What I tell people is I'm just a curious guy, so like literally anybody who wants to come talk to me, I'm totally down with.
Well, he's super cool. He also does. There's I believe it's called the Game Devs of Color Expo. It's a New York-based event, which is like an expo for Game Devs of Color. Obviously, let me see. Expo. I want to make sure I'm calling it by the right name. Yeah, the Game Devs of Color Expo. I
think I follow their Twitter.
He's like one of the cool. Yeah, Sean is a really rad dude. I imagine we originally became friends because we're both very tall.
Oh, right.
Yeah. But like also because he was making a game that I was like, it's cool and it's the kind of game I want more people to play because it's inventive, right? It took something and I didn't get to play it until it had released, and I had been his friend for years, and then when I got into the first combat, it just blew my mind. I was like, oh my god, it's like, what if Double Dragon and Final Fantasy Tactics were like married together, sort of, in a
genre
game.
Blending is so cool.
Well, and it has elements too that are kind of reminiscent of a Fire Emblem in that it also has like the triangle. Know, one is better. Because there's grapplers, there's brawlers, and like each one of them is better suited to fight, and you have like a stable of characters which you can choose before going into battle. So like, yeah, it's neat. That's a great
wild.
Game. Yeah,
I like the beat 'em up genre, but I'm not super good at it. So like, I never did finish Shadows of Mystara fairly. I used to watch combo videos on YouTube, and I was always so impressed. But I've been meaning to finish Streets of Rage 4, which I just remembered I have.
I've heard it's really good. I know that I think did you see they announced the new Battletoads game?
They did. It's available on Game Pass. That launched either yesterday or it comes out tomorrow. Today's the 19th for clarifications.
Yeah. The style surprised me. The animation style, I wasn't expecting it to look like that. Like I think I was on a podcast with my friends talking about like we were pitching who should get a game, right? Like who would you let remake a game? And I said, might as well give Battletoads to WayForward.
Would
right?
make sense.
Like,
yep.
Yeah, like they, I know like purists don't love everything about the way they treat beat 'em ups, but I think that they make solid games. Like none of their games are bad.
No, I had Adam Tierney from WayForward on the show, and that's what I told him. I'm like, look, you always put out something. If I don't love it, I like it.
Yeah, like I would say at worst they're doing a 7 out of 10 on a bad day, right? Like where you're like, this is worth playing. I've never played one of their games and been like, oh, I regret this. I think that's good. I'd rather like that at least at that point, because part of what you run into with that is like, how could you? It'd be like making Half-Life 3 at this point, right? It doesn't matter how good Half-Life 3 is. It's just going to disappoint people. It just will. Yeah, like people are just going to be mad because WayForward is not capable of doing the thing that you would need to make the perfect sequel, which is turn you 12 again.
Yes.
That cannot be done. So the second best thing is to respectfully treat because they've done all kinds of stuff. The Mummy Demastered is
I like that one. I gave that one an 8 or a 9, I think. It was really fun.
That game has way more, less right to be as good as it is, because it's like the, demastered version for a movie that was made.
Everyone else, like any other studio, would have just phoned that one in, right? But WayForward's like, let's make a bomb-ass Metroid game.
Yeah, seriously. It's like, it came out of nowhere, too. Mm-hmm. I think, the beat-em-up scene is cool. I want to see more. I wish there was more Alien Hominid Castle Crashers-esque ones out there.
Yeah, which we are getting a new
Hominid
move pretty soon.
Right. That's just one of the original side-scrolly indie game, right? Because I remember it blowing my mind when I was, gosh, I don't even remember how old now, when that came out for GameCube. Like, it was obviously a Flash game, but when it came out for GameCube, it blew my freaking mind because I was like, wait, this is like, who made this, right? It's not one of the big, because like I played some indie games, but back then that was almost unheard of, right? To have a console released indie
especially
game.
One that started in Flash. And I mean, for background, I'm 28, and I think I played the Flash version. Never got anywhere with it when I was like 10 or something, maybe younger.
Yeah, I'm like 33, so we're like one high school class apart. But that means that, like, yeah, I played it too for sure. But what's funny is I didn't even realize until years later, Behemoth, the company that made that, they're based here in San Diego as well. Like, they're actually physically here. So I've finally over the years met a handful of them because they always exhibit at like Comic-Con.
Well, and Berserk kind of lived in that same space of like people that got famous on Newgrounds.
Yeah. Now I have something to talk to them about. Course. Before I was just like a guy. Yeah, it is very funny being with Berserk because obviously the history of Flash games is like something that divides people who know who we are from either they know us from, for the most part, just Shapes and Beats, or they know us from like either the Flash games / mobile games, right? Because there was a like Berserk Ball, which was also a Flash game, right? We had a handful of those. Like the studio's been around a long time. A lot of people don't realize we're like almost creeping on 13 years. I think.
You guys have been at it for a while now.
Yeah. I mean, Berserk is technically, I think, the first indie studio in Quebec City because Quebec City has like a really cool indie scene that's really tightly knit. And part of that is because there's a company there called Freema, and they make like a lot of like educational and licensed software and stuff. But a lot of the indie studios started from employees who spun out from Freema over the years, but Berserk did it first. Like Simon and his friend, they all did it first, but then over the years, other ones joined, like Chainsawsome Games, the makers of like Night Squad and Aftercharge. They're from Quebec City, and a lot of their staff at one time or another worked at Freema. Sabotage Studios, who made Messenger, are based, and they're doing Sea of Stars, the new one they kickstarted.
Yeah, I've not played the Messenger yet, but my buddy Streiser was the guy on the GDQ couch for it.
What have you been doing?
I haven't. I just haven't. It's on the list.
It's a game so good it retroactively ruined Ninja Gaiden.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like I went back to play Ninja Gaiden and was like, this isn't as good as the Messenger.
So I have it on the Twitch PC app because they like gave it out through Amazon Prime.
Okay.
And I swear to you, if it was on Steam, I'd already have it beat. Or not Steam. If I owned it on Switch, I would already have it beat. I just haven't taken the time to buy it.
Yeah, you should always maybe reach out to them. I bet they'd probably be able to send you a key or something.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk to them about Sea of Stars because I think there's some cool stuff going there. And then Crosscode I want to get in touch with too.
Crosscode looks so cool, my friend, because we have like a games podcast where we just talk about the news. It's basically an excuse to be friends.
Well, yeah, of course.
We don't get to talk anymore. So yeah, we just and he was going on and on about Crosscode. I really need to go grab it. Like if
it wasn't for being currently unemployed, I'd probably already own it. Like I was hovering on the buy button the other night, and I'm like, probably better not. Oh, and for reference, Battletoads comes out tomorrow. So if you're interested in that and got Game Pass, you can pick that up.
Yeah, Game Pass is such a cool thing, great, man. Right? I would love for us to be able to be involved in that. It's tough because, of course, Game Pass is something that they reach out to you, right? Right. Like you can email them and say, we're interested, but it's ultimately up to the platform holder. And for a game like ours, like a lot of people have asked, like for just Shapes and Beats at least, like, oh, you're not on Xbox. And it's like, part of that is that at this point, 2 years into the, the life cycle of a game, not launching into something like PlayStation Plus or Game Pass is a tough call, right? Because a lot of people probably aren't going to want to pick it up that late in your dev cycle.
And it'd be hard to discover
and it's also,
all those sort of facets.
And honestly, the other reason at the end of the day that's like a big deal for a game like that is that it plays best if you want to play online multiplayer when there's a fan base, right? So like Fall Guys, essentially, right? Like the first game I remember seeing do it is other hometown boys from San Diego when Rocket League went on PS4. It launched in PS Plus.
That was a big moment for them.
Which was a great, super good idea. Worked out pretty okay. Like it's that same thing, which if we launched into a platform this late in the game, we would want there to be enough people to have bought in originally for the other people to play with, right? And like unless you launch into Game Pass, which such a cool. Like, I'm mostly PlayStation these days, but I respect the hell out of Game Pass.
That's the way that I play any of the major, like, Xbox titles that I like. Like, I absolutely loved Gears of War, but I fell off between, the release of Gears 4 and 5. But I actually played through Gears 4 through Game Pass, and then I can play it on my PC as well. So, I mean, that's always cool. And it just works.
I was talking... It's so super good. I mean, talk about value, right? Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
It's insane.
My boss that I worked with at the state, he was was a big gamer, and he would play, indies like I do and just kind of find cool and interesting stuff. And when Game Pass came to town, he actually took the advantage of whenever it was on sale, bought like 4 years of the subscription, and then sold all of his PlayStation stuff. He's like, you know what? I can just game on the Xbox from here on out, and I'm totally cool with that. I'm like, wow, good for you, dude.
It's weird because it's like a similar thing to where, if you're a little patient, you never really have to buy books, right? Libraries exist. Like, you can download audiobooks from them. Like, it's one of the first services that really, like you said, could be the only investment you need to make as long as you're open-minded about the games you want to play. Like, we're at a point now, we've reached a game critical mass, right? I could play games that I probably own or can access for free or cheap for the rest of my life. There are so many games.
Yeah, there's so many. I could probably spend, the rest of my 30s playing just what's on my shelf and still not get to everything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it's wild. Like, and that's a big thing for indies too, is luckily we're happy that we were successful with just Shapes and Beats. And I think that Infernax is going to extremely heavily appeal to the people who get what it is. And our marketing is not going to be, focused on trying to convince new people who don't like. It's not gatekeeping. We're making it where if you don't /haven't played Castlevania, it should still be fun. That's the goal, right? We want people to be like, I like calling it a Zeldavania, right? Which is, but like I've never played a game inspired by these. It's still accessible and fun to that person, but to the person who has, it's like full of like grace notes and like appreciation that make you feel like, oh yeah, all right, like these guys get it, like they understand, like. Yeah, because as a studio too, like we don't like exclusionary stuff, right? Like retro games can sometimes get sort of like that, which I think is bad. I don't think, a lot of that is the kind of thing that we don't need anymore and can be left in the past, where it's like, hey, if you want to offer a super hardcore mode for people who want to play that way for a challenge, awesome. Like maybe also offer one that's not as hard though, because like you're forgetting about accessibility, for instance. Like accessibility is important to me and the whole studio. So like that's a conversation that we had, which is like our game is really hard, so it's good that we're going to have a mode that like helps you have a less punishing reset, because it's one of the things we can do to make accessibility better. I also want to talk to some other accessibility advocates to see like if there's anything we can do.
Yeah, I mean obviously Steven Spawn at Able Gamers is a great person to contact for that.
Of course.
Another one that you may not be aware of is Laura Kate Dale, a journalist.
Okay.
She all the time works on accessibility. She's got a weekly show about that very topic. Yeah, so she would be a good one to get in touch with as well.
I've talked to Steve Saylor, who is the consultant who did a lot of the accessibility stuff for Naughty Dog for Last of Us.
Yeah.
He was the one who did a bunch of it. Yeah, so like I'm definitely going to try and reach out to like just ultimately there's only so many things that we can do, but I want to do what we can, right? Like, you can turn off screen shake and stuff in certain games. Like it's easy stuff, like I appreciate it. I think it's cool, if there's anything that can make it better. Like there's so many things that I wish, like if you redesign Metroid today, right, you should turn off that like sound when you're low on health. No one wants
a mini map.
No one has ever
ROM hacks has done, makes it a little easier.
Of course. The first ROM hack I ever wanted for Metroid was please stop making it loud.
Or like in Pokemon, eventually they got to a point where like it would beep once and then just not beep anymore. Right. But like you play the original Heart or the original Gold and Silver or Red and Blue, like it'll beep the whole time you're low health.
Oh, it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. Yeah, and that kind of stuff is.
We can leave that in the past.
That's exactly. That's the kind of thing I don't think we need for authenticity. We're good.
No, that's exciting. I'm stoked for Infernax, and like clearly this is something that you're super passionate about, because I own a shirt that you gave me at PAX that you designed. Yeah. That's just like this death metal shirt. That's just, it's so cool. It's one of my favorite shirts.
Thank you.
Like clearly,
good.
You being on this team is like a super super good fit, and that. I can tell talking to you how much you like this game, and so that excites me because like
it's for me, right? They're making a game for me, and conveniently, like I represent a fairly large group of people. Like it is pretty funny because a lot of people like that shirt, but the shirt has drawn people in who like we're just gonna walk by the booth, right? And then they say like, oh, what's going on with that shirt? Because the shirt is like very inspired by death.
Yeah, it's got like a death clock look to it. I mean, it's pretty sweet.
Right. It's very over the top intentionally. Like, and we're talking about, for PAX, if we do end up doing stuff for PAX Online, I was like, hey, we should, maybe let's make another shirt. And they were like, we can't do another death metal shirt. And I was like, but we are going to do another metal shirt, right? Because like, what other kind of shirt would make sense?
Do like an Iron Maiden kind of artwork or something for it.
That's a yep. It's like you read my mind.
I got you, man.
I was like, what if we just more color, right? Like an 80s, like a power metal band.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. We still have some stuff going too. Like one of the last things that's probably going to get looped in, unless anything changes, is our friend Family Jules, who's like a musician that does a lot of metal covers on YouTube.
Oh God,
for, like, game music.
I just
and
recently
stuff.
discovered them. Yeah.
Yeah. So Jules, it's just one guy really. Like, and I also found he lives in San Diego too. We've known each other for like years,
Nice.
and I for some reason thought he lived in Canada. It turns out we live 5 miles apart. But we're gonna have him redo a lot of the music. We have some newer versions that he's done, but we want to have fully updated, like, kind of metally music.
Very cool.
Like, but a lot of it's trying to keep it true to it being like Nintendo, right? Like, when I say we want to do stuff that no one was doing, it's more of like Nintendo would have never approved it. There wouldn't have been enough ROM on like any single cart to have a game this long. But the way it articulates to you, the player, is it just feels like a really crazy good.
Yeah,
NES
you take
game,
the
right?
impression that people had of the NES in that era, and then recreate not what it actually is, but kind of what you imagine it to be.
Yeah, exactly, right? The goal of retro game and retro game design inspired stuff these days should be to recreate the feeling of what it was like, not the actual experience, because the experience itself, when you go back, is sometimes not nearly as good as, like, go back and play the Heatman level from Mega Man 2 and see if you still
the original
think
Star Fox,
that
which, I mean, there's a dev out there doing a modern version of that's freaking rad. Have you seen that?
That's
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I have not.
Oh my God, let me... EX Zodiac, that's the name of it. This was a Kickstarter thing. It's basically modern day Star Fox, and it feels freaking great. And it's like low poly. Oh my God, it's so cool. But yeah, that kind of stuff.
I love passion projects. I mean, indie games are indie games. I'm super biased. I'll always be super biased, and I'll own it all day long. Like, I could spend the next hour just talking about like games that friends of mine are making that I'm excited for. Like 30XX is coming out, and I am so ready for it because I've known that.
I talked to the guy that did that, I think.
Probably Chris King, CK?
I think so, yeah. So he was showing Jamestown Plus at PAX, and then was like, that was right whenever 30XX was announced, I think, or shortly before. I haven't played 20XX, though, yet. My buddy Zach, who runs the podcast with us, he loves it, but I just haven't had the time.
It's fun. The biggest strength that they're bringing out with 30XX, in my opinion, is that the gameplay of 20XX is awesome because it is basically Mega Man X as a roguelike. Like, it plays great. When I remember when I heard that, I was like skeptical. But the way they did it is each level section is actually hand designed, and it's just sort of like procedural, like what order they'll come in and which boss you have to fight and things like that.
Very similar to Dead Cells.
But the art style, but like way before, right? Dead Cells came out way later. I wouldn't be surprised if Dead Cells is actually a little bit inspired by that game. But
it's cool to see indies inspired by other indies, because there's a project called Foregone, and when I talked to them, they're like, "Oh, we like Dead Cells," and wanted to make kind of that. I'm like, huh.
Cool. Yeah. Especially, like, I'm a big fan of we like this, so we wanted to make it plus this one other thing at least, right? Yeah. Like, Infernax is, we like Zelda. It's funny, there's another game that doesn't really get talked about a lot that is actually, if you play it, has a lot of inspiration in Infernax, but it's not one people bring up a lot, which is Fixanative.
Yep, I owned it, but never understood it.
It's funny. You should go back and play it. It's actually it's a better game than you'd think. The biggest problem with it is that there is a pretty early on, there's a point in the game where the best thing you can do is grind for about 30 minutes. Like, there's like one screen where you like leave to the right, come back in, kill a dude, leave to the right, come back, and do that for 30 minutes to get enough gold, because you can unlock like the best shield in the game at the very beginning.
Yeah, I think Jeremy Parrish just recently did a retrospective on his Metroidvania studies project on YouTube.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, it's a really interesting game. It has some really weird choices that they made. One of them is like momentum-based movement. So if you spawn on the screen, the longer you hold right without stopping while moving, the faster you slowly start to move. And it's necessary to gain speed at certain points to jump across parts of the map. And it doesn't articulate great. It's one of those things where, like, it was an overreach for the time period, I think, because it's clunky the way it's. We're trying to, like, the best thing about Infernax, in my opinion, is when you move around, you feel the weight's good, and you're like, the physics feel good. So when you die, you know it was your fault. Like, I want you to know that you failed.
It wasn't the something that wasn't like or conveyed as well as it could have been, or that type of thing.
Right. There are a lot of moments in like Fixanity where, like, as cool of a game as it is, there are deaths I had there where I was playing it, and I was like, that was more of the physics than me.
So you guys are. I'm pretty close to release. I mean, we'll probably see it, if not by the end of the year, early next year, if I had to guess.
I would love to see it out by PAX West. It's hard to say right now, but I know that the team is ready to be like we're going to start talking about the plan marching towards. I'll be the first one to know when we're ready, right? Because ahead of time I'll start having to do press outreach and talking to people. But luckily the pandemic has not slowed down development for the most part. It has just expanded the timeline of like we decided since everything. We really like showing and releasing games to shows, right? To like physical, like it, part of that's because we enjoy exhibiting in person, and part of that's it's a lot more fun to be able to say we're selling it, it's live, here it is for the first time at a show.
And I mean, I've always been a big fan of the convention scene and being in those spaces surrounded by those people. So like, I totally get why you would want to do that.
Yeah, and we'll see. It may, maybe that, who knows how long this situation in its current state will go on, and so that's going to be a big dictator. But I know that we'd love to get it out as soon as we can at the maximum amount of quality. Awesome. So I think it's going to be so much cooler than the one that we were talking about a year ago, though, which it was already going to be really cool. So
I'm glad that it's given you guys like the space and the time to really like make it something extremely special. Like before it was special. Now we're pushing to like, all right, this is going to be pretty damn cool. I'm excited to see how people take a hold of it, because like there's all these different micro circles of retro fans or people that just like that style of thing. And so I'm excited to see like who picks it up, who ends up making the 20-minute I like this video.
Right. I would love to see that. And the other thing, I hope it's worthy of speedrunning. Like I've never tried to myself, but there's nothing nothing is a bigger compliment, I think, to a developer than someone who likes your game enough to try and like become the most optimized. Like the amount of intimacy with a game it takes to speedrun it is such a huge compliment. So any game that does get speedrun, that in and of itself is like such a nice
It has
gesture.
To be extremely flattering.
Yeah, exactly. So I hope that, it lends itself to that too. That would be great.
You gotta poke Strizer. He's one of the best Metroidvania speedrunners I know personally. And he does a lot of the Castlevania stuff. Yeah. So I mean, it's right up his alley. He's a good dude. I like him.
But yeah, so I guess we'll see. Hopefully we get to go to a show in person soon. That's the big thing.
Maybe it'll be PAX South. I think that's scheduled for January.
I don't know.
It'll be close. I don't think it's going to happen, but
I think East is maybe a maybe.
Yeah, in like April, March somewhere. Cool.
Yeah, which is it's tough. It's tough to be planning that far out, but hopefully we get to see each other in person again, and hopefully maybe Infernax will be coming out when I do see you in person.
That would be groovy. That'd be great. Hopefully. We see that coveted physical release too, because me, I want to put it on a shelf. I want to take it with me.
Well, luckily we're friends with we're friends with people who do that. Like we're I know Doug and the Limited Run guys really well. So once we're later in release, and actually what's funny is everybody keeps asking about that for Just Shapes and Beats too, and Infernax will unlikely need to wait as long, because the reason Just Shapes and Beats hasn't gotten any sort of physical release is that we are not going to do one until we're done.
Well, yeah,
as long as we're still adding content.
And that way it's printed on the disc, it's stamped, it's like, all right, this is the most complete version we have. If you open this up 20 years down the road, it's going to play just as good. Like that's what you want on like a card or something these days. Because like my Dead Cells card, I got it at PAX. So it was, it had the second, or one of the big patch updates, but didn't have the latest set of DLC. And so, you gotta go on, download that or pay for it or whatever. And so I always like it when things are complete on a disc, but like just being on a disc in general, I think is super, super cool, or a cart or, what have you.
Yeah, especially. I mean, there's, what are you going to do about updates, right? Yeah. Like if you put out DLC, that's what, I mean, I respected that they chose to hold off on the Celeste physical release until they were done, because they had that one final update. Like they pushed the physical release cart back like 6 months or something, because they didn't want to put it on a cart until Celeste was quote unquote done.
That's the way to do it, I think, and I'm glad that you guys are in that same mindset. But good to know that you already have those connections over there, because of course I always love to see it.
Oh yeah, I do too. I mean, I don't like the idea of, like, it bums me out to think that all of my friends' games and the indie games that I buy and stuff, like, of course the way tech is, it's going to be out there, but like you don't own it. Like I can't loan it to my friend like I can with a cartridge.
And I am all about the art of the recommendation, and the easier you can make that for people, the better. Like I loaned out my copy of RE7 to a friend, and even though he was like scared straight out of his mind with it and couldn't finish it, I was like, I think this is a really cool game. And so I'm glad that at least he gave it a try.
Yeah.
But all right, Hunter, well, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me. I know this was kind of spur of the moment, because I'm getting ready to take a trip across the country again, I guess.
Well, I'm glad I got to come on. We've been talking about doing it for a while, and I think with your move and me trying to continue making video games through the everything. It's been a while, but I'm glad. And also, it's cool since we had a gap. I have more stuff to talk about than I would have if we'd done it sooner.
And of course, you're always welcome to come back on the show for whatever you happen to be doing, or if you want to bring on some of the other guys and gals, you're more than welcome to.
Yeah, when we're closer to release, I'd love to drag Shane on, because Shane's done a lot of the hands-on stuff. Maybe Etienne, but definitely Shane. Shane might have fun doing the podcast because he's really excited about the game, and so it's been fun working with him on it a lot. But I'll definitely send some friends over if I can too. There's some other indie devs like Sean working on Treachery that I would love to hear him talk. I'm always just trying to get him to talk about his game.
Yeah, of course. Like I said, I am just. My motto is stay curious, and I have such a broad joy of games. The only things I don't touch is sports and racing simulations, and sometimes I'll mess with those.
Sure.
And I don't like grand strategy usually. But other than that, I'll play just about anything. People are more than welcome to get in touch with us. And speaking of doing that, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you or Berserk Studio, check out Infernax, plug your places. Where should I send people?
Yeah, sure. For the studio, on Twitter, we're just Berserk, but that's BERZERK Studio, at Berserk Studio for Twitter. If you want to follow just Shapes and Beats, which is, our best-known game, obviously, it's at Shapes, the letter N Beats, so Shapes Beats. I'm at Bond Hunter Bond on Twitter, which is spelled like it sounds. And our studio has a Discord server that's pretty active. If anyone wants to join, just the Berserk Studio, obviously, if you Google it, that's where it comes up. But yeah, that's most of where we're at right now. We're still not doing a ton of active promotion stuff for Infernax. A lot of that's going to depend on if we are able to participate in PAX. That's when we'll probably start talking more about it, especially if we have that demo available.
That's why I wanted to catch you, because I know not a lot of talk about it, and it was one of the things that stuck out the most to me at PAX West. And for anybody that knows my story of being at the last PAX, I had a meetup just about every hour to half hour for 4 days straight. So I played a lot of things. I didn't play everything, of course, but I played a lot of things.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate it.
And of course, if anybody wants to catch us, you can send us an email at theforeverclassicpodcast@gmail.com. A lot of our content is anchored at foreverclassicgames.com, and we are doing weekly news discussions and just gaming chats with me and Joe and Zach on twitch.tv/foreverclassicgames.
Well, thanks again.
It's been great. And of course, anybody listen to us, stay safe, stay cool, be good to each other, and we'll catch you when we catch you.